Okay, welcome to Marian's Morning Talk. Today it's my very big pleasure to welcome Matthew Piddington, our Director of Services at Westcon-Comstor, who has come to highlight some of the cool things they are doing. Welcome, Matt, to my Morning Talk.
Good morning, Marianne. Thanks very much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Matt, you have been now almost 2 years with Westcon. Are there any new initiatives and services that you're really excited about?
Absolutely, Marianne. I mean, it's proved a really interesting 2 years for me, and it's great to be part of such a large, fast-moving, exciting distribution business. I mean, really, the overall excitement for me is about services in general. So if you look at the growth of services focus coming out of our distribution business into the channel, as a value-added distributor, I think the focus on services is greater than it's ever been. Not only from our vendors, if you look at, for example, the likes of Avaya, they're now seeing up to 68% of their overall business revenues coming from services. If you look at our partners are more excited and focused on customer experience to the end users that are purchasing technology than they've ever been. And I think our customers, the end audience that are receiving technology, because this is effectively allowing them to deliver their organizational strategy and execution, we're seeing more focus on services from end users in terms of how do I truly recognize return on investment for any major spend I'm making in technology as a whole. And I think, my summary would be this. You would never go out and buy a Rolls-Royce car and not invest in a number of things when making that purchase. The first would be education. You would never go and buy a brand new Rolls-Royce and not invest in driving lessons. So the big thing that Westcon, our vendors, the channel are promoting is when you're making a major purchase on technology, do you understand the skills and capability of the people within your organization? Do not assume just because you have an IT department that they have worked with that technology stack before. So the first thing that we are actively seeing is a greater focus on learning and education services than we have ever seen. And more organizations looking at what skills and capability do I have today and what do I need for the future? And that naturally extends to other elements of our services offering. So the next item you'd think, if we take the analogy of a car, is you would never buy a Rolls-Royce and take it in for a service. So think about your maintenance contracts, your support contracts that are needed in order to make sure that if you do have a problem, you've got someone at the end of the phone, end of the email that you can talk to, be it Westcon, a vendor, or even a partner. And again, a lot of the time that is mandated by the vendor that you have to take a support option, but it's not always. And we need to be thinking about over and above support options that exist in the marketplace to make sure that you're getting the most value out of your technology spend. If you don't have the skills and capability in your organization, is there an option to purchase them on an ad hoc need? That would be our professional services business. So for example, you may have a Rolls-Royce car. You may not want to drive yourself. So you may want to invest in a chauffeur. Think of that simple analogy as professional services. At Westcon-Comstor, we have the ability to provide you either with our own, a vendor, or a partner's professional services capability to give you the skills and capability that you need, again, focused on adoption of that technology in your organization. And then finally, our supply chain business. That's a bit like configuring the car before it even leaves the garage. So do you want it to be labeled differently? Do you need support with import and exporter, forward and reverse logistics? Do you need an expert that's used to working with Brexit legislation? Westcon can offer you all of that capability, but I think often we need to make it easier for an end user and our partners to understand exactly what's available through the ecosystem, really focused on that customer experience. And that is what gets me out of bed in the morning. There are a huge number of organizations, particularly today with what's happened in the last 2 years under the pandemic, that are facing rapid market disruption. And actually, they're actively investing in technology to support them with a strategic goal. If the technology does not deliver the desired solution, they can't execute their strategy. And that is the single point that we as a value-added distributor are addressing in the market today. And my summary is everyone needs to focus on the ultimate customer experience moving forward. And the organizations that do that will gain competitive advantage and grow significantly quicker than anyone else in the market.
So Matt, you just said, referred to the pandemic. So do you see any future challenges that will affect the services market?
I think the future challenges are paramount. And I think COVID has accelerated them, but it hasn't introduced, in my mind, any new challenges. So the biggest challenge that we've seen in the last 20 years for any organization is around market disruption. You know, that age-old example of we now find organizations such as Tesla that are larger than any automotive company in the world, but they've only been present for the last 20 years, for example. We've seen the rise of the Airbnbs versus the traditional hotel. We see cryptocurrency disrupting the traditional banking establishments. And that's just to name a few, without the likes of Spotify, without the likes of Netflix, but what you are seeing is a dramatic increase in the rate of change. And what that's actually meant, Marianne, is 52% of the Fortune 100 companies in the last 15 years no longer exist. And the average life expectancy of a company has gone from 75 years in 1955 to an estimated 15 years in 2017. You know, the rate of change and the lowering of barriers to entry is greater than it's ever been. And I personally think the pandemic will accelerate that. What it's led to is even more removing of boundaries, being able to set up an organization in your home, for example. We've seen more and more of that through the pandemic as unemployment has increased. People are looking at doing something different with a career. And I think the other thing that we have to recognize is an organization's ability to be able to cope with that change. You had the CEO of Microsoft coming out in the first 6 months of lockdown, highlighting we've delivered 2 years worth of digital transformation in 2 months. You've seen a number of our vendors, such as Avaya, come out with really robust collaboration technology to be able to allow people to work from home. And that has been a real plus in terms of the development cycle of the organizations that we're working with. But I think what we also need to recognize is that's come at the expense of some other elements. So rolling out new technology, and we as a distributor, you've spoken about this a number of times on these morning talks, we have grown significantly through this period. But the element that hasn't grown is access to learning and development. Taking the time to make sure that your workforce, not only IT, are familiar with the new technology that's being brought into organizations and can actually recognize the benefit. And before the pandemic, a stat that I used to talk about a lot, which is something from Bursin by Deloitte, is they estimated only 24 minutes a week an individual would have where they can allocate time to learning. And in my opinion, I would imagine through the pandemic where everyone's doing more with less time, you've probably seen a shrink of that statistic. And it wouldn't surprise me if people are struggling even to get 5 to 15 minutes available as a time to learn. And I think that is a challenge as human beings that we need to address, but also organizations need to focus on that moving forward.
Yeah, I fully agree to that. Yes, so learning is very important. Yes, change management is very important, especially in these times. Yes, that everything goes to as a service. Yes, that our salespeople are learning that as well. That because that is a change, what it will come. Everything goes from a CAPEX to an OPEX model. Yes, so I think there are lots of things. Yes, what we can discuss in our next morning talks. But Matt, one thing, you are an excellent speaker and presenter. What is your secret about that?
I think the first thing that I'd always say is find something that you're passionate about. And for me, there's 2 things in the world that I think are really positive from a societal perspective. The first, which is completely unrelated to anything I do, but that's medicine. You know, doing something in health, giving people more longevity and a better way of living from the health and well-being perspective, really important. And the big thing that I'd pick up on, which is very dear to my heart, is mental health. And I think the pandemic has created some really interesting challenges and made a lot of organizations have to think hard about how they're going to support people when working from home. We are not individuals that are used to being in a confined environment for a long period of time. You know, that pack mentality that we adopt as humans, we need to be able to execute. The second is learning and development. I think working in learning and development, as I have for almost 20 years, gives me immense pride, because I think giving people more knowledge, skills, and capability is really important. And I personally, think about learning something new, even just a snippet, every single day of the week, learning from colleagues, peer-to-peer, doing formal learning interventions, or even just learning and doing self-research or self-study, reading newspapers, reading books. I think it's really important to look at that. And that's fundamentally where the passion comes from, believing in what I'm doing. I think the other two crucial elements is practice. I'm lucky enough in the role that I do, I get the opportunity to speak on a regular basis. I get the opportunity with a great peer team that I get feedback on my presentations where it can be refined. I think that's really important. And never underestimate the value of practice. And then finally, one that you'll hear a lot of presenters talk about is storytelling. The start, the middle, and the end, taking people on a journey as you go through. And of course, I'm quite passionate about giving people some insight. So what are people learning as a result of hearing me talk? What are those knowledge nuggets that they're going to take away as a result? And I think, when it comes to technology, the one stat that I'll call out time and time again for our market that we suffer with is purely around IT project failure. There are still organizations such as Genpact that when they analyze the market, as much as 7 out of 8 IT projects are seen as failures. And that means they don't deliver the desired return on investment, they don't meet the functional needs of the business, or they run over time. And that is something that as a distributor, working with our vendors and working with the channel, we must address moving forward. And I think our services business are really well aligned to help organizations deliver that now and into the future over time. And I personally think that more and more of our vendors, more and more of our partners, and more of our end customers in the market will invest higher levels of the overall project spend on services moving forward. I think the final call out, and I have to make it, is what I'm also really excited about in the market is our move towards solution lifecycle. So taking our traditional renewals business, serving a maintenance or support contract and renewing that on an annual basis and moving that so it's fit for purpose in the future. And as you correctly highlight, Marianne, looking at the trend moving to subscription models moving forward, I believe in the next 12 months, you are going to see some real disruption in the market led by Westcon around our solution lifecycle. And if you're a partner of Westcon, you should be excited about what that means in terms of customer experience moving forward.
Yeah. So Matt, I think, yes, that Westcon generally with our cloud platform Blue Sky, with everything as a cloud platform, what is available when a vendor wants to connect with us, they only need to connect once and they are live in all the countries. The minute they have the service available, I think there is Westcon very unique. And it's not only Europe, it's Asia Pac, it is Africa, yes, where we are live with Blue Sky. So I think really Westcon International is there on a very good path. And I'm really happy that we support all of our business units, support each other in such a good way. I think that is something what has changed a lot in the last 2 years, yes.
I think what we also bring to the table when I look at our services offering compared to others is a lot of our vendor portfolio is quite niche. They are not very, very large vendors in the marketplace. And that can often mean, from a services perspective, finding learning options, finding professional services options, even finding support options. The market is quite immature in terms of the availability of resources to fill that void. And what you get from Westcon is the capability to be able to support you. And as you highlight, we're not talking about just the United Kingdom and mainland Europe. We're talking about an organization that has depth and reach across 70 different countries across the globe. And that will only continue as we continue to grow from success to success.
Yeah. And I think there we are very unique. And I hope that all our customers get way more aware of what services, staging, academy, and all of that, what we're doing. Yes, but not everybody knows that. Yes, lots of people are thinking we are a normal distributor as we were in the past. But I think we have evolved so much in the last 2-3 years. Yes, and we need to bring that more out in the market. And I hope my Marianne Mornings talk will help a little bit to spread that more around. So thank you very much, Matt, for your time today, being in my morning talk. And I hope that we will have some more of that good discussions in the next month. Thanks a lot.
Brilliant. Thanks for having me, Marianne. Take care.